time, we open the regular monthly meeting, Hamlet City Council, October the 9th of 2018. We would ask that Reverend Tommy Grand give our invocation tonight. Thank you for being here.
Let us pray. Almighty God, thou who art omnipotent, all power, it is thee that has made us and not we ourselves. We come before your presence with thanksgiving and with praise. As we pray tonight, Heavenly Father, we pray that you would lead us and guide us. We pray for the citizens of this community. We pray for the citizens of the entire Richmond County. We pray for those that have sacrificed their lives to rescue and to make life better for others. We pray for wisdom. We pray for knowledge. We pray for understanding that we may make today a better day and tomorrow a better tomorrow. As we acknowledge thee, we ask, God, that you would lead us and guide us in the things that you would have us to do that would make life better for the citizens of this community. We pray for the city council tonight. We pray for the firefighters. We pray for the emergency workers. We pray for our police department. We pray for our service workers. We all are in this together, that we might be able to make life better one for another. Grant unto us the riches of your grace, for we know that your grace is sufficient. Do it because we ask in Jesus' name, and we thank you now, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again, Reverend Grant. It's always good to have you with us. Council, you have before you tonight the agenda for the meeting. What are your wishes on that?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request that one addition be made to the agenda. Under new business, number 9, there's a consideration of rotunda rental use with alcohol.
Right.
I've received another request that you should have before you from Ritz Craft, also seeking permission to use the depot for a Christmas party that they have scheduled where they would like to have alcohol. So I would like for council to consider that under number 9 as an additional use for the rotunda.
Okay. Council, what are your wishes?
So move.
Got a motion to adopt?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay. Also, you have before you tonight approval of minutes from the meeting of September the 11th, regular council meeting, the closed session minutes. Also, there is just a short blurb in there on a meeting that occurred on September the 15th of 2018 is being shown as an emergency session. And what that was the police department and the fire department wished to update any of us that wanted to know, what the situation was in town during the storm and where we were. And as it turned out, enough people showed up that there was a quorum, so we did report this as an emergency meeting. And there was no business whatsoever conducted at this meeting, and it was not a required attendance to it. Council, what are your wishes on these minutes?
Move to approve.
Okay, got a motion. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay, thank you. At this time, we move along to item number 5, which is comment from attendees. And I believe that Mr. Chuck Cobb wishes to give us an update tonight on plans for the Seaboard Festival, which is coming up shortly.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and distinguished council. I'm pleased to announce that all of the spaces are rented, and so things are falling into place. It is fast approaching. I would like to mention that we are meeting every Monday, this coming Monday and the following Monday, and probably one additional meeting from that before the Seaboard Festival Day on October 27th, and would invite council or anybody in the public, anyone's welcome to come to the meetings and participate in our discussion as we are finalizing the last phase of things. Have a banner that was purchased by the Richmond County Tourism Development Authority. There were 2 of these, and one of them will be displayed in front of the Tourism Authority, and wherever the city would like to place this other one, we have this one available to place somewhere that will be strategic. And yes, I think they did a very good job. And also, in regards to banners, Diane Mabe is a member of the board and had a great idea of maybe getting a banner that would stretch across the street in Hamlet, and it would be a two-sided banner. I have a picture of what it could look like, and would just like to show the show council. That can be displayed up now, what that would look like.
I was thinking we had one sometime before in the past, but I don't recall.
Now that is a two-sided banner. As you can see, the location's about the middle of the street and where the festival activities will be in front of Arlo's. And I've been told though that the other side of that is a little different design with a newer style engine and maybe a different angle or so of the depot. But
I think you said it was an old terminal hotel.
yeah, so it's a little different design, but basically would be very similar in saying something of the nature that the city of Hamlet welcomes the annual Seaboard Festival, and it has those logos presented on it. But I think Diane had a great idea. She presented this to the board, and I believe it would be
Did you get a
asset
price?
to the festival.
Did you get a cost on it?
I believe it's around $754, but that needs to be double checked.
Chuck, I'm sorry, did you say 754?
I believe that's correct, but that figure would need to be confirmed. TRG Signs has the design.
You check
of that,
on, double check on that price and get it to us. I think that would, I know I've heard some talks, and I've talked to a couple of people about it, and I know some of the festivals go on in Laurinburg and some other festivals, they use banners like that, and it really sticks out and gives the city, some good attention. It looks good, introduces the festival, and just a really great way, I think, of just making it shine and pop. And I think the city, this would be it'd be something, as long as we didn't put the year on it, we could use it, year over year over year until we have to replace it. And I just think it's something the city ought to be able to get for you all and not have to try to seek funds to do it. And if we need to do that in the motion to try to seek getting that, I'd like to do that, Mayor.
That would be very much appreciated by the festival, and that would be a great asset to the festival, I believe. So thank you for that consideration.
We would need
and I
to,
will confirm the price for you.
Hold on just a minute.
I mean, we would need to know a price
Yeah.
because there
Yeah, if we could get it under $1,000, I think that would be good.
there wouldn't be another meeting for us before the festival.
Where did the 750 come from?
TRG Signs.
So they've already quoted you a price?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Well, that's the price then.
they could pay the rest if it was, they've got funds, they could pay $50 or.
That is my recollection of the price. He's quoted the price, and I apologize. I should have
Well, could we say
today.
750 to 1,000?
Yeah,
All right,
my
to
motion is
to
if we
1,000.
can get it for under $1,000, the city make the purchase on it.
I got a couple questions in reference to, those are Duke Power poles, and when Mr. Stubbs and I were working on the Christmas lights for Hamlet Avenue, they had a restriction on the height that we couldn't put Christmas lights out on their roads below 15 feet, somewhere in that range.
That's right. You can't have anything.
You got to make sure that this is.
At least 15 feet.
Yes, it's a state road.
That, but the restriction,
The DOT is like 13.
13.6.
Something like that.
DOT says 13.6.
I mean, that's all I'm saying is that you gotta make sure that you can get it up high enough to meet their codes, and you're also using their poles. You need to make sure that you have permission to use their poles to put this. I think it's a great idea. It looks great, but you got to follow the rules.
Yeah, and I think the DOT requirement is probably waived because at that point the street's closed.
That street's closed.
It's closed.
Yeah, but
for-
you're not.
It'll be up there several
but-
days, though,
But
even
yeah,
though the
it's gonna
streets
be
are
there
closed.
before and after, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know when they're gonna put it up. I couldn't
Well,
tell you that.
from being there in the morning, I don't see how you could put this up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
No, it needs to go up earlier, yeah.
So,
Well, we just need to make sure it's in compliance. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I'll just check with the DOT and all and find out what we need to do. and be sure we can get approval. But I know we're not going to meet again, so or at least turn it into the hands of the city manager that he can, he's got our consensus that we can do it so long as this, we can get DOT approval.
And Duke Energy.
Duke Progress.
Pending Duke Energy's approval, the DOT approval, and then not to exceed $1,000. Is that what we're?
Is that your motion, Mr. Bowie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, do I have any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise.
I will say that I've had a couple former council members actually called, and I don't know how they got it, but they got a picture of it, and they were saying it'd be nice if you got two. I said, well, I don't know if they want to do that or not, but it's beautiful. It's gonna pop.
I agree, and that was presented to the board by Diane Mabe. It was her idea, and she reached out, and Chris Carpenter, I think, was a partner with her in reaching out to someone that designed it. I think his name was Zach Brown, but I don't want to misstate his name, but anyway, he did the design, and it was her idea and presented to the Seaboard Festival board. So we much appreciate the city of Hamlet taking on that expense for us, and pending the approval of the DOT and Duke Energy Progress, and up to the amount of $1,000. And Mr. Blanton and I can get together tomorrow and confirm that price with TRG signs. And again, would welcome anybody that would like to attend our meetings. We'll be meeting on Monday, October 15th, again on October 22nd, and probably around October 24th to get in the last final phases of the festival. So,
At what time?
6 p.m. here at City Hall.
6 p.m. at
6
City
p.m.
Hall.
City Hall, yes.
Now, are you going to leave that banner let the city put it somewhere, or are you going to put it somewhere?
I'll speak with Mr. Blanton, and wherever you find it a strategic place to put it, be glad to.
They store
offer that.
most of they own the building out at the waste treatment.
No, I'm talking about
For now, though, to actually
that
put it
banner
up
up there.
somewhere for us to go, or for.
Would it be best to put that banner at the visitor center or depot where it's in a controlled environment?
Yeah, wherever you decide. I was told there's an event out at the Dragway this weekend, and it may, for a temporary site this weekend, be a good place to advertise the festival.
I think he's talking about that banner there after it's over with.
that
store
one. Oh, yes.
out of the
at the building.
yeah,
storage
and
building. Yeah,
store
that'd be great.
like where there's air and heat. But I was asking about that banner there that you got.
And that's the one I'm referring to.
Right.
Is that if it could be temporarily placed out at the Dragway this weekend, there's
Yeah.
going to be a crowd of people there, and it'd be good advertisement.
Yeah,
to
that's a good idea.
have it out there. But then, before and beyond that point, the rest of this week or next week or whatever, the city chooses would be a good strategic place to put it.
I wouldn't put
it's
that banner up
available.
till about Friday, the way that talking about that storm.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, love to go.
All right, well, thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, in reference to storing that thing, Mr. McQueen made a comment about heat and air. That building is not, you might want to try to store that in a controlled environment. That building is not.
Right. Yeah, I think
Because
that's what.
that banner won't,
Yeah, I think that's what Jonathan was talking about, putting that
Couple
banner in the depot.
couple of years out there in the heat and the cold, it'll start cracking, and
But that should last for a long time.
if it's
Just
stored.
up for a day or so and taken down and stored properly.
Do we have, are there, I'm sorry, are those guide wires there, Billy, or do you know? I don't.
Me and Jonathan looked at it. It looks like we wouldn't have any problem getting it up high enough. If somebody would come down there with an overnight vehicle, they might tear it down.
That's their fault, man.
I mean, are the guide wires already there? Are those wires there? Is that just?
No, we'll have to put them up.
Okay,
I think they just superimpose that over the street.
didn't notice. Who would notice?
Chuck, thank you for what you're doing. We really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Chuck.
Yes, sir. Thank
You're doing a great job. Council, moving along to old business, discussion of the Jack Breeden Park updates.
Mr.
and
Mayor, I believe
improvements.
Mr. Barnes
Oh,
wanted
excuse
to
me.
address council. And as far as continuation of comments from attendees, Mr. Barnes, I believe, was trying to get my attention that he would like to speak.
Oh,
with
okay,
council.
I'm sorry. I got tangled up there with Seaboard and overlooked you. I apologize for that.
You're fine.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jehu Barnes, and I'm coming to speak with you in regards to some things I'd like to address. And I have been in, I guess, phone tag with Mr. Blanton in regards to some of those things. And I have 3 things that I'd like to address, and the latter of the 3 just has some detailed information. One, he and I had just spoken with regards to the agenda. I don't know everyone's name based on, I can see it, but there's a glare. So I asked, is there a reason why the names weren't put on the agendas? I've come to several meetings before and I've asked that question so that I would know who I'm speaking to in regards to the council.
You talking about
themselves.
us?
Yes. I just said that.
Okay.
That I see them,
Okay.
but in regards to them being on the agenda so that I can pass on that information to other people.
It's on it's on our website,
Okay.
a picture with names, and isn't it? Yeah.
And again, going back to the agenda, if I'm gonna take the agenda to someone, say for instance my church or my community, folks would like to know, someone may not have access to the internet or may be internet savvy.
I'm sure they can
Yeah.
give it to you after the meeting.
And he said that it's a possibility that could be addressed, you know, in the future. The other thing is in regards to neighborhood beautification. I live down in the Buttercup Drive area, and I know that at one point when I grew up here, there was pretty much a lot of things being taken care of. But I've seen over the years of me being here, after I relocated here about 15 years ago, things have been lax. And in order for those things to be taken care of, I would have to call and say, look, we have drains down here that need to be cleaned. And why is it that I have to constantly call you to have you come and clean these drains when I see the trucks come through and they pick up, you know, little debris here and there. But as opposed to doing it continuously or doing it as a part of the, I guess, job description or whatever the case is, it is not being done. So the area has gone lacking. There's an area that I think I've spoken with, I want to say the gentleman here in the Burgundy, with regards to it being cleaned, such as the debris and brush and shrubbery and all those things have grown up. There used to be a power source there, but it's no longer there, so it's no longer being taken care of. And it's in our community, and it looks a mess. And I'd like to see something done with regards to that, because I believe someone said that that property was purchased by you all to possibly have some kind of housing done or something done somewhere in the near future. I'm not sure. But it's on Buttercup Drive, and then if you bear off to your left, there's Ellen Drive. They all meet right there in that area. And I live in between Ellen Drive and Buttercup Drive.
On the left?
In the Y itself.
Okay.
And so, but if you come into the community, we're not in the, I guess, public housing community. We're down from the public housing community. And so that area has been neglected quite a bit. And so I'm kind of disheartened and disappointed because when I grew up here, as I mentioned before, it was a relatively well taken care of, well-maintained area. And now it is not. We have some abandoned properties down there that is not being taken care of. And so I'd like to see, I guess, some things done in that regards, as well as the street maintenance in terms of drainage, in terms of growth that's on the side, you know, which is, I'm assuming, part of the city's maintenance that they would take care of. And with regards to street signs, the street signs end up all kinds of directions or covered by shrubbery. Growth is over the signs, so it's causing a lot of problems. So I say all that to say, if at some point, I don't know, you know, what could be done or what will be done or should be done, but I'd like to see it addressed more as opposed to someone having to call and say, look, come and do this, can you do this? Why is it that we're having to make those calls on a repeated basis, especially if it's been addressed over the years? And lastly, community service. I had a really, I guess, a problem with public service with regards to some issues that I've dealt with in the past in regards to policing our area. About 3, maybe 4 years ago, maybe a little longer, we had a rash of break-ins in that area. And I've constantly called, and they probably can tell you, my name is listed. I call constantly in regards to our area being monitored, policed, and so on. We have a lot of elderly people there, and we have a lot of retirees. There's probably only about maybe 5 of us that are working and live in that area, and we'd like to see that area policed more often and make sure that there's a viable source of policing, that someone would see and say, oh, yeah, that area is being watched. We can't, just haphazardly come into that area. Also, with regards to the storm that recently passed, Hurricane Florence, we were without power for 4 to 5 days. And I don't know who I need to address with that issue, but I have overheard several other communities were not without power as long. And I'd like to know why. And lastly, when I made a call, which was what was told to me, to make a call in regards to tree limbs being down on power lines, I was told that with a very snide, sarcastic, very flippant remark from police officers that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I did not appreciate it because I was calling because I was told to do so. I did not call with an attitude. I did not call with any sarcasm. And I was told by Officer Sears, who immediately gave me her badge number and told me, well, we have power because we have a generator. You don't. And if I'm in a crisis and I'm calling to tell you that this is what is the issue, why would you speak to me in that tone or in that manner? So after that being done, another officer chimes in, gets on the phone and says, well, sir, and his name is Jacobs, Officer Jacobs. And he referred to me and he spoke to me in regards to the situation. And the other officer in the background, Sears, was saying, well, do you not realize that we are experiencing a hurricane? Again, I live in the community. I do know that we're experiencing a hurricane. I was doing what I was told to do. And so, having said that, I told her, I said, there is no need for you to make those smart comments in the background. You just keep right on making those comments. I'm doing what I was told. But you as a public service person should be better trained, or if you were trained, it did not take. And so I asked for their names, and of course, we were disconnected. So I called back, and that's how I got their names. And I was extremely, extremely frustrated with the situation because for the simple fact, as a public servant, I would think that you would have more empathy. I would think that you would have more understanding and more of a means of handling the situation better. And regardless of whether you're under stress or not, you took on the position. And that is a position that you should be able to handle. If you cannot, you do not need to be in that position. So, and I leave with you in regards to what I would think. Charity starts at home and then spreads abroad does not mean self-serving. It means serving others around you who are less fortunate, and then it spreads to others. And so with that being said, I just don't understand the tone that I received. I believe that something needs to be done with the officer. I don't know how or what will be done in that regards, but I do have their names. Jacobs, again, he stepped in, but he still was not able to give me any information that would pertain to ideas of when power would be restored or what they were doing, what was the idea. And so I was looking for some answers, and I was referred to you all because I called down here the day before no answer, which was that Thursday. And then I was referred to call the sheriff's department. I did that. And then they were the ones that transferred me to the police department. And that's how I was able to get through. And I think.
Mayor, if I may.
So.
Mr. Just a minute, Mr. Boyd. Mr. Barnes, did they, at no time did they inform you that if you had a power problem, you needed to call Duke Power because the city couldn't do anything about it?
Yes, and I did call Duke Power,
Okay.
and then also I called, just to inform. And that's all I was doing was calling
Okay.
to inform and let someone know, because even during that conversation, the Officer Jacobs said to me that Duke said that they were not sending anyone out to assess the situation, and until the hurricane
Till the
had
storm
passed.
was over, that's right.
And so, having said that, I found that to not be true because they were sending people.
I don't
The
know.
person
That's what
came
I
on
was
the-
told,
No,
and I
sir,
didn't know
no,
of
sir,
any.
They shut it down. They shut
Yeah.
it down. Their people were ordered in, the PD was ordered in, and Duke Progress, during the height of the storm, their people were inside.
That's
So
right.
on the 16th and the 17th, when I saw someone,
Not the
they were
whole-
assessing the
Well,
situation.
now that we can't answer for 16th and
But-
17th. We just
Right.
know what we're told.
But
same as you were.
I was without power for 2 days myself, and the city has nothing to do with my power nor your power.
I understand all of that. But I was saying to you, in regards to a person being in public service, answering the phone
Yeah.
and having that type of attitude,
Sure.
You
With
actually
regards
had,
to
you
that.
actually had two issues. One was your power was off for an extended period of time and you couldn't understand why. There's
mhm,
nothing we can help you with. And then the separate thing that,
that's what-
that you're talking about now with the officer
mhm.
is really the only thing with that we have anything to do with.
That's between
Right.
you and the city manager on that issue
Right,
with
and
those
he and I spoke
employees.
with that
Okay.
in that regards, but I wanted to make sure that it was addressed, because for the simple fact, I believe that too much, whom much is given, much is required. So in that regard, if I was a person in that position, I would have been a little more understanding or a little more empathetic in regards to speaking with the person on the phone and having some answers, and as opposed to being flippant and blowing people off on the phone, then hanging up.
So you spoke to the city manager about
Yes.
this. When did you speak to him?
I spoke with him this whole past week in regards to, and he and I have
Okay.
been playing phone tag and setting up a meeting, and I told him I'd love to come and speak with him in depth in that regard.
Yeah, because that's the best course of action would be to talk to him because he's
Mhm.
over every employee that we have.
When, okay, let me try to address a couple of your issues here, Mr. Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is the issue about the police department. Are they responding when you call them?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think you understand that we've got about 6,000 people in this town, and we've got a lot of area to cover.
I do.
And at any given time, there is very few policemen working. We just don't have the money to hire any more policemen.
Mhm.
So they're doing their best you can, and they really have to focus attention on some of these other areas that you are aware of that we've had some serious problems. But my biggest issue is just to make sure that they're responding when you call them, but I'm sure they ride through at night on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Now, my next question to Mr. Stubbs is, what's this piece of property down there? Does it belong to us?
Actually, it does. It used to be a pump station there, and it was taken out of service probably 10, 15 years ago.
Are we making any effort to keep it cleaned up?
We cut it several times.
Okay. And as far as the road shoulders down there, somewhere down in there, it turns to State Road, doesn't it?
Not know that.
Not that, okay. But when's the last time y'all cleaned up that little piece of property? Do you know? Is it, okay. But it's been done this summer?
It's been done twice this summer.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna take a look at that.
Okay. And again, I don't have a problem calling and saying, look, this is what is happening. And the reason I had called was because of the flooding issues that we've had in the past. And he said that he was going to speak with someone in regards to coming down there and seeing if that is a flood area. And I have yet to see anyone.
We've had a terrible time keeping the drains clean, because on top of having the storms, we're having the pine trees, or so just trying to get around, get them all cleaned up. Well, we are working on it, and
Exactly.
Billy and those guys are doing a fantastic job. But we always encourage you to call. Okay, we
Yes.
don't. I mean, we can't read people's minds. We don't know what's going on.
I agree.
Mr. Bowie, did you have a comment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnes, I definitely appreciate you coming in and addressing some of these issues with council. And some of these things, I think it's definitely something that we can work on and fix. I will say that as far as the policing down there, I've spent a great deal of time over the past month coming down and officiating soccer there at the field. And every time I'm out there, I see officers coming through and patrolling. So, I mean, I think they are coming through. Obviously, as the mayor said, they can't come through enough because they do have a territory that they have to cover and ensure we get every area covered in the city of Hamlet. But they are coming through. You may not see them as often as you'd like, and trust me, all of us would love to have more officers there to be able to have designated areas and zones, but unfortunately we just don't have the monies to do that. As far as the drainage goes, really the best way to do it is community support. So if you can talk to some of the people in the community and ensure that they're leaving the leaf and limbs on their property and not putting them in the street so it doesn't go down into the drains because it clogs them up. So all that stuff will help us help you as well. So if you can pass that message along, we'll work on what we can to try to get it better. And as far as the personnel issue, that's something that the city manager, as you heard council and the mayor say, that's part of his area. We appreciate you bringing that to us. And I'm sure that Mr. Blanton will address that and take care of it. But again, without people like you coming and telling us about what's going on, we don't know. So I just want to thank you again for coming and speaking to us and let us know.
And I thank you for the opportunity to be able to address the issues with you. And as I had mentioned before, when I call, they do respond. But the issue is, if I call you, I feel like there's a need. And you were mentioning you've officiated the games down there at Jack Breeden's field. I do see the officers, but I see them policing the low-income area. They do not come to the housing area. There is a housing area that is houses, not low income. People who work and pay taxes, take care of their property, and the only time that they come there is if I call. They have an area where they come down the Grand Street and go into the projects, and then they circle back around, and then they'll go around the baseball field, soccer field, whatever you want to call it, but they do not come around Gin Mill Road and down Marks Creek Road and down Buttercup Drive and Ellen Drive unless I call.
I got a suggestion.
Yes, sir. Understand.
I got a suggestion on that. The area that he's talking about, it would be easy for a new officer or any officer really when they're patrolling to not make that right turn or to go straight and go that way. I know when I worked there at the police department, it was, and some of them back there, I mean, the ones ex-officer back there and current officer, I'm sure they know exactly where it is. But when you go straight down that way, it is a neighborhood, and turn to the left, go down Ellen Drive, and it dead ends. And it's really hard to patrol a lot of times on dead-end streets because there's really nowhere for the officers to turn around at and all. Mm-hmm. So I really think that that's part of the issue. Maybe if they just maybe talk to the chief and the captain and let them know that area especially, I mean, because they're in that area a lot. They really are. But to make that right and go back in that area, and it cuts back out and it brings you back out. You can do a loop. There's a dirt road that goes back that way that you can go back to the main road, go back to Jack Breeden Park. That being said, especially some of the newer officers, the city limits ends on Gin Mill Road, like past the store, but it goes further down where you're talking about, mm-hmm. And that would be very confusing for somebody if they didn't know or were specifically told. In other words, on the main road, it's Gin Mill Road, right?
Gin Mill, and I forget the name of the street, but
when you come out of the park, you go to the railroad track, you turn and go back to the right. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you go down the street he's talking about, down Buttercup Extension, it goes all the way down.
Exactly.
And then there's several roads that you can come back. Very, very nice community.
Well, there's also, in that area, there's some houses that are not even in city limits.
Well, the city limits end at the street that he's speaking of, where It's Buttercup Drive Extended, and right at the very end, you can make a right.
But
and
we've got
you'll
some
see that-
houses, we've got some houses that are down in that area that are not actually in city limits. They're like little islands.
Right.
And, but anyhow, I didn't know if you were aware of that. But
Yes.
still, we need to be patrolling that area.
That's
Okay.
something that we can address, and that's probably
Yeah.
something that a simple sign or two may
Exactly.
help out.
And one last thing, and I know I had said it earlier, but I think I misstated when, what I'd like to see, to be honest with you, is some speed bumps. I don't know if that's possible or something that you would speak to with regards, because we have a lot of traffic that comes through there, and they come through there rather fast. I kid you not. And we do have some kids that are there now. And so, you know, God forbid, you know, anything should happen, that a kid be playing, kick the ball, and something happens. I've seen dogs get hit because for the simple fact they're speeding through, and they keep going, you know. So,
Jonathan, is that state road?
Not where he's.
No, it's
where
not
he's
state
talking
road.
about. It's city street, according to Billy.
The league and the insurance for the city, they frown upon speed bumps.
Oh, yes.
Because of damages to cars
And
and
it's
stuff.
bad for
Yeah,
fire.
I got that,
it's
but
bad
how
for
about
fire
a,
trucks, too.
I mean, I know it doesn't stop foolish people, but a kids that play sign in that area.
yes.
What did he say? What did he ask?
What was the
Kids
question?
at play sign, and possibly some enforcement down there with.
I'm being told that DOT does not recommend that either. But I
Okay.
will.
I'm
certainly
like
check
Jesse,
on-
we definitely need some more, we need to make sure we're enforcing that area.
Sure.
And, cause I mean, I've been down there officiating games and just, there's no lack of concern for a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit.
And a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit zone where he's talking about is fast.
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, there's no markings on the street. The street's narrow. So
I'll certainly look into that, Mr. Barnes. And I do appreciate you coming tonight. And I just wanted to speak briefly in regards to the drains and signs. Public Works Director and I have been down there numerous times. We've checked out that property beside you that you've had some issues about the dilapidated property. So we've been down there several times. We're keeping an eye on it to see what we can do in that regard. I will certainly speak with the police chief about patrol in that area. I know they spend a considerable amount of time down there, but like Councilman McQueen said, sometimes it could be confusing where the city limits start and begin. And as I said on the phone, I certainly appreciate you bringing the issue of the attitude that you received with some of our officers and dispatchers to my attention. I actually gave a brief summary of some of your concerns to City Council in one of my weekly reports a few weeks back. So again, I really appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Be glad to meet with you anytime that's convenient for you. And again, really do appreciate you coming tonight.
And again,
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you.
In order to be sure I don't miss anybody else, to have anybody else got anything for council tonight? It's not on the agenda. Okay, if not, we'll move along to item number 6, which is discussion of Jack Breeden Park updates. Mr. Blanton?
The paving at the South Hamlet basketball court concluded last week. That came in at $24,425. I spoke with the fencing company on Friday. They had locates out there earlier this week. I'm told that they're waiting on some material to come in from Tennessee for the fence, but that should be put up within the next, I'll say 2 weeks, bearing nothing happens later this week with the storm. Last month, we discussed looking at a picnic shelter. Public Works Director and I looked into that, had a meeting, and the type of shelter that was recommended was an 18 by 21. That comes in around $2,500 to put that towards the new playground equipment on that side, a new shelter over there. As far as new basketball goals, which is something else we discussed last month, that's going to be for 4 new goals, roughly in the $6,000 range. That will be removing the 4 that we have there and going to something similar like Dobbin Heights has. It's just a single loop down as opposed to two steel beams on each side. So that's around the $6,000 mark. As far as lighting, Duke Energy and I have rescheduled our meeting several times, but they are going to be meeting with me this Thursday, again, at assuming that is possible due to the weather, at South Hamlet to look at putting a floodlight on the existing poles and the potential cost of putting another pole on the soccer field side, as well as making any recommendations that they see to be appropriate. Also have looked into benches and tables, if that is something that we want to explore. The benches, tables, we're looking somewhere around the $1,000 range for a couple under the shelter, as well as maybe one for the basketball goal. So to date, we have spent $28,125, or we will once the fencing is completed, and then the picnic shelter is looking at another $2,500, $6,000 for the goals, lighting still up in the air, and benches, tables, we're looking at another $1,000. So those are the numbers that I have for council's consideration. Be glad to proceed in whichever way you see fit.
Mr. Blank, can I pause you a second?
Go ahead.
So the concession stand, and I'm sure you're aware of it, Jonathan, that got broken into again a couple of weeks ago, correct?
It was the concession stand at Memorial Park that was broken into a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. So that makes 3 or 4 times for Memorial and 3 times for South Hamlet.
Roughly, that sounds right. Yes, Mr. Bowie.
Yeah. So we definitely, those lights definitely need to be done, because at nighttime that concession stand is dark, so you can't see what's going on down there. And I know it's just a little bit of profit, taken out of there, some chips and candy and stuff. But at the end of the day, if somebody wanted to go in there and steal stuff along with vandalize the stuff, I mean, even if we have to put one of the cameras we purchased up to let's monitor that area a little bit, I think it would be well worth it, because just the constant damage and stuff being done, or even secure the door a little better than what we have it maybe would assist as well. But just wanted to make sure council was aware and knew about that going on, because we need to make sure we're addressing that area.
And we can certainly do that, Mr. Bowie.
Okay, where are we?
In regards to the pricing is where we
the,
left off.
Shed and the picnic tables, was that a concrete? Were we going to pour any concrete, or just put the shed out there?
These prices only reflect the shed being put out there. Concrete or paving would be another issue if we wanted to explore.
Well, I think it could look nicer with I wouldn't think it would be overly expensive to put a slab down and secure it to.
If you can do it right.
Well, the other thing is you're gonna need to, if you're putting tables out there, they're gonna need to be secured into the. They'll be going. He's shaking his head. You've been broken.
I'd agree with you, David. I'd agree with you for the simple fact also, it's not going to be a large shed, so if you have instances where we have wind, it's going to blow that shed.
Let me ask.
Like the one at the shop.
How much money did we have out of what we appropriated to pave that thing? How much was left?
$60,000.
We had $60,000 to date. We've only spent, with the fencing, will be $28,125. And even with these suggestions that we're discussing tonight, we're still well within.
So we can put the concrete pad down now.
Oh, for sure. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I wouldn't think it'd be less than 1,000. When you think, Billy?
Close. Yeah.
But it would secure the building, and it would secure the picnic tables. And as Mr. Martin, I think, said, you might as well do it right.
Yeah, I agree.
That'd be level.
Well, you won't have to move the benches when you go cut the grass or the tables, and
then we can fit that in then with the money we'd appropriated.
And in reference to lighting for that building, you have power in the building. Again, electrician, you might be able to put some poles on both sides, come up and put, again, our own LED lights there, and you got.
See, they have poles down there, David. They just need to put a light on the opposite side of it. The one that's on there is, I think the bulbs burn out, and then the other one faces the field, not the building.
Oh, I was just in reference to additional lighting for that building. It would be very economical, Jonathan, to come out of the building with your power and put a couple lights on both ends of the building to give it.
Oh, yes, sir. I agree with that.
I mean, again, I've got some at my house that are LEDs. They're outdoor. They're nice, and they were like $200. I mean, you got to get them installed. But even if they were up 6 or 8 feet up above the roof line, it would help secure that building, and it would help to this picnic area also a little bit. Just something to look at and doing economic, because those night lights are $20 a pop, I think now, a month.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think we're moving in the right direction. I don't think we need to move too fast on. I think we ought to get some more prices and possibly bring it back.
Prices for cement slab or
Or
pricing
just go
for
ahead
like?
and do it. I mean, but you're still under budget if 60,000. If I think it's,
Well, we pretty much know what the prices are. I mean, it ain't like we're talking thousands of dollars. We're talking about a $200 bench or a $300 bench and $20 for a light. Or
I'd like
I
to
think
see us,
make
I'd like
a
to see us go
motion
ahead and
to
finish the project.
go ahead and do it and get it done and get it over with. I don't see any point in delaying just to get a price on the bench or shed or he's already told you it can cost you about $1,500, maybe $2,000 to put a slab down.
If
What
council's
more you need to know?
and if council's comfortable with the prices for the shed and the goals, I'll get the ball moving on that as well as the cement slab.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll report back when I know more about the lighting and move forward with a few benches. But I can, of course, keep you updated throughout the rest of this month, and then we can discuss it again if there's any issues that arise at the November meeting.
Do we need to have some kind of consensus to just proceed and let's go ahead and get it done? I mean,
That's all
at
we
least
need.
have
is
some
consensus.
opportunity to be able to use it before it gets cold.
I'd say let's proceed and get it done.
Yeah, I agree with that.
As long as we're within the budget.
make a motion.
Yeah, we're on the
We
budget.
don't need to make a motion. The money's been approved already.
Well, I mean, for what we're doing, do
All
we
we gotta
make
do is
a
have
motion?
consensus. Council says okay.
I mean, you could do it by motion or by consensus, because as you say, it's in the.
The money's already been
Just
approved.
just read back what we're doing. So, I mean,
Sure.
uh,
The picnic shelter will be $2,500. I will go forward with that. The 4 goals will be around the $6,000 mark. I will move forward with getting those goals installed. Cement slab, I will move forward with that between $1,000 to $2,000. Lighting, I'm going to get with Duke Energy. I won't make any formal decision or allocate any or commit ourselves to any type of funding for that until something definite's there. And as far as the benches, if council's comfortable, I could go up to 1,000 to get a few benches and tables for the shelter.
We'll bring us up to somewhere in the neighborhood of
the benches.
plus
Are
$11,000.
we putting benches on the basketball court?
Well, I think we ought to have at least 1 or 2 out there because they come in to change shoes or
Okay,
put their coat on the
two benches for the
yeah,
courts and
at least a
two-
couple of benches.
I believe it'd be big enough to put 2 picnic tables. You're gonna need some good metal picnic tables down there.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that the metal with the like vinyl coating?
That's the
We
best
can,
kind.
sure.
That's the best kind with the vinyl coating. Metal with vinyl coating on it.
We're up somewhere in the neighborhood of about $13,000 estimate.
Sure.
And I'll add something to besides that.
I purchase those vinyl coating tables all the time, and Granger has a good price, and I'm sure if we already work with them, they can give us the discounted price for the city. Billy, am I mistaken, but don't we already use Granger for stuff?
Correct, Mr. Bowie.
Okay, so I mean, go through Granger with the rep. Don't go online and order. You got to go through the representative you typically use, and they can give you a discounted price. I think Billy already knows that. I think he told me before that's what he normally does.
Okay, best way to handle this, I think, is just go ahead and have a motion to go ahead and complete this work.
I'll make a
So
motion.
I'll make a motion. We get it completed.
I got a motion over here from Eddie. Got a second
I'll
from you,
second.
Jonathan? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed likewise. Okay.
In reference to the lighting,
Mm-hmm.
we might want to also look at some of this internal instead of Duke for Memorial Park. Again, if you're supplying your own power and with LEDs, at least let's look at electrician and getting some estimates on
That'd be a good idea.
doing some of it ourselves, because you could come out the 4 corners of the gym and, you know, you're not, that $20 a month add.
Yeah, that's ridiculous when we can put it up ourselves. That's a good idea.
And secure these concession stands. And probably need to look at Boyd Lake, at the parks down there with some more lighting, because they're broken into also. So, but, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next item of business, we'll be moving into new business as an update.
I think we lost
Mr. Bowie.
What if he calls Matt?
Yeah. Did you call him on this phone?
I did, but I don't have his number.
Well, I can hit redial.
Try that.
Hello, this is Jonathan Bowie. I'm sorry I missed your call.
Okay,
He has his number, so he can.
yeah.
He can call back there.
Okay, item number 7, update the fee schedule. Mr. Blanton, go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. There are 2 changes or recommendations to the fee schedule. The first is in regard to the subdivision ordinance, which was updated in 2016. The current ordinance requires the Planning and Zoning Board to hold a public hearing to review or deny any preliminary plat for a major subdivision, and this is true even if it's outside the city limits in the ETJ. To offset this cost, which is of course the cost associated with bringing the Planning and Zoning Board together, we consulted with Mr. Morphus and are recommending a $300 flat fee to review each one of these subdivision plats. That is the first update to the fee schedule, recommended update to the fee schedule. The second is with regard to the increase in water rates and tampering fees that we adjusted effective July 1. We are suggesting an increase from $25 to $100 for contractor temporary water hydrant hookups up to 2,000 gallons or load. That's something that we did not revise when we were having the discussions about the increased water rates. And addition, we are recommending changing the fire hydrant tampering fees from $50 to $150, which would be the same as other tampering fees. So it's 2 recommended changes to the fee schedule for council's consideration.
I think you just said 300 on the subdivision.
That's the review fee.
On here, it's
Correct.
400.
It should be 300, Mr. Lindsay.
I got it highlighted that on what,
It should be 300.
it says 400 on here, on the enclosure.
I made a mistake then, it should
Okay.
be 300.
Well,
That's one for today, you're entitled.
Thank you.
well, and also on the rezoning and things, we about pay, we go in the hole every time somebody rezones.
We increased that earlier.
That was taken care of early.
For those that don't know, would you explain the tampering fee?
Sure.
The tampering deal?
We implemented an increased tier system with the updated fee schedule in July, whereas the more times you tamper, the heavier the fees are implemented. And that's when someone goes after they have not paid their bill, after they've been given a late charge, and after they've went and had their water cut off when the deadline is expired, and they go back behind the city and cut it on themselves. When the city goes back out to assess and sees that it's been turned on after we've turned it off, a late fee is, or a tampering fee is levied against that account, and a lock is at times put on the meter to keep it from being tampered with again.
Did you say when they cut the water off, they put a lock on the meter?
At times they do.
And they would have to break the lock
No.
or cut the lock, wouldn't they?
Only when they see that it's been tampered with. Originally, they'll go out, cut off the water, then they'll come back and check on it sometime later, and if it's on, they'll turn it back off and at times put a lock on it.
In other words, after it's cut off, if they go back out there and turn it back on with one of their tools, then the city finds out about it, then they'll cut it off and lock it.
Well, why wouldn't they cut it off and put a lock on it in the first place?
Well, at times, I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Martin, other than at times when they've been an issue in the past, when we've had problems with them in the past, we'll put a lock on them, but
And-
for the most part, it's honor system.
Well, y'all know what you're doing. I just.
Yeah, and there's
wondered.
so many of them. There's so many
That's
of
okay.
them.
Yeah.
That happens to you. Have a bunch of them. I make a motion to approve it.
Okay, I got a motion
Second.
to, and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay, item number 8. We had some inquiries about chickens, and we do understand that there are other places other cities that do allow chickens, and we asked the staff to research this for us, and we would like for you to come back and tell us what y'all found out.
There are many places around the states that do allow chickens and then others that don't. The ordinance vary greatly on what's allowed and what isn't allowed. Council would need to discuss a various number of factors when looking into chickens. For example, are we going to allow only chickens, or will be ducks, other forms of wildlife? Are we going to require a permit for these particular chickens? Are we going to require a zoning compliance, certain places to be put in and certain places not? So I would be glad for any type of input or suggestions from City Council on the way to proceed with this ordinance. I have recommendations, if council wishes to hear them, or just an open discussion on what you'd like to see with an ordinance in regards to allowing or not allowing chickens in the city
I'd like to
limits.
know what council's thoughts are on this.
At first glance,
Not talking about roosters now.
yeah, I mean, at first glance, you see this and you think, well, you don't want
Yeah.
chickens in the city. But there are a lot of cities that allow a limited number for the residents to have with very strict regulations. And I think you've done some research.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's not like a farm where there's gonna be chickens running around. I mean, it's very limited in scope.
I'm sorry.
Carrie, didn't you say Carrie had a good?
Yeah,
point?
I've got Carrie's right here. And we can make it as restrictive as council likes or as loose as council. Like, some of them are pages and pages and others are just a few short sections. So it's really at council's discretion on how you would like to address the issue. But some of the main underlying issues we do need to discuss is, are we only going to allow chickens, or will it be other type of wildlife? Number of chickens, permits and registrations, zoning compliance, accessory structures, whether we're going to require a waste disposal plan. Those are pretty popular. Noise issues with the chickens or the wildlife, and square footage requirements in regards to what size lots can have a certain number of chickens, and if we're going to allow it in all zoning or only particular zoning.
What's some of the towns that have this?
The town of Vass has a pretty straightforward, what I would consider to be a fair ordinance. The town of Cleveland, town of Cary, as Mr. Lindsay indicated, Sanford allows chickens, and they actually have an application that you have to fill out for each chicken. But a lot of people are on the honor system, if you will. Aberdeen allows chickens with reason. It's pretty straightforward and simple as well. So it would. Laurinburg does not allow chickens within their
If
city
it's
limits.
something, I'd like to see something simple. I mean,
Yeah.
they get complicated.
Mhm.
And,
I know that the Morphus people represent Aberdeen. They probably wrote this.
We worked on that one. I know the Village of Whispering Pines recently had a big debate, and they decided they didn't want chickens. So to echo what Mr. Blanton said, your first question is, do you want them or not? And then we can talk about a lot of these other details. But we've certainly written chicken ordinances before.
How many jurisdictions do you think that y'all represent folks that have this?
I would say probably it's about half and half. I mean, I think the universal rule until probably 20 years ago was municipalities just banned chickens. It was a sign of being sort of modern and progressive if you didn't have livestock in your community anymore. And then when towns started looking, they said, well, we can allow a little bit. And some, like Whispering Pines and apparently Laurinburg, said we're not interested, and then others do. And when they do, they want to try and restrict them, because people have chickens, they do it for pets, but it's also for eggs. So common restrictions are you got to have a certain size lot. You have to have construction standards for the coop. It's real common to ban roosters, and often they'll allow other kinds of livestock, but it might be just other kinds of fowl. And it's really common to see chickens and other livestock allowed, chickens and other fowl, excuse me, but not any other livestock. So, so chickens are not like gateway livestock, getting into goats and other things, which
right.
some communities are looking at as well.
Well, before we did anything, make any kind of decision, wouldn't we have to have a public hearing or something to change any kind of ordinance? Or?
That's a good question. Under the municipal statutes, you've got police power statutes and you've got zoning authority. And I've seen these ordinances show up in different places. There's actually a statute under the police power ordinance or statutes that says cities can ban livestock and essentially other animals from municipal jurisdictions. So that's your authority to ban it. And I would say it is better to have a public hearing because it acts basically like a zoning ordinance, although it's not completely clear. But I know some communities, chickens become a big issue and people want to come out and they want to talk about it. So I think if y'all want to move in that direction, treat it like a zoning ordinance and let the planning board have their say, and then y'all consider an ordinance.
I had thought the same thing that Mr. Martin had, that we should at least let people come in and have comments on it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear public opinion on it.
The first step the council would need to take tonight is just agree or vote to send this to the planning board to discuss and bring back a recommendation based on what council wants to see in this ordinance. If you would like, I can put up the town of Vass's ordinance and kind of walk you through it to show you what I think would be favorable if we are going to move forward with the chicken ordinance, to give the planning and zoning board some type of guidance on what to write without just saying you want an ordinance that would allow for chickens in the city limits.
Absolutely.
Sure. Again, this is from the town of Vass, and down here are the requirements for chickens. Chickens are the only type of fowl that they allow, so they wouldn't allow ducks or anything else. It would just be chickens. Of course, no roosters. And this just kind of goes into their ETG to allow chickens or other fowl to come to some events. Coops and yarding area shall be located in the backyard so as not to have chicken coops in the front yard. That's something that I would view favorable. Should be capped in the coops at nighttime, but may be allowed to roam during the day. And then enclosed perimeter fence. Also, the coop shall be located within the yarding area and shall be set back either a minimum of 30 feet from the solid perimeter fencing or a minimum of 100 feet from open wire fencing, so as to give a little bit of guidance and regulation on where you can put what, not allowing slaughter. Provided the requirements of this section are met, no certificate of zoning compliance shall be required for coops or yarding areas, so that would eliminate the paperwork or transaction process of it, of people coming up here having to fill out a paper, pay a fee, or anything of the like. So that's simple, straightforward, and at least gives a little bit of guidance, unless there's something else that you all would like to see or any recommendation. And the number of chickens, that is something that this doesn't address, I don't believe.
Definitely.
I can't read that, and I was trying to listen to you and look for something at the same time, and
Okay.
I may have missed it. But does it backyard, front yard?
Backyard.
Backyard. Okay, all right.
It wouldn't allow it in the front.
Yeah, that's what I was
I
hoping.
believe that's correct.
And-
Is that-
And Mr. Blanton, I think it's only the backyard, and this closely mirrors Aberdeen's ordinance. And like Aberdeen's, they've got, I'm looking at here, it's maximum number of animals. Any number of chickens may be kept on a single lot, provided minimum acreage requirement is 1 chicken per 5,000 square feet. So that's what they do. And I think Aberdeen has another, maybe it's like 10 or 12 maximum as well. So those are both pretty common approaches.
There ought to be a maximum.
Any idea on maximum? 2, I would say 2, but
Yeah, I wouldn't go.
I
wouldn't
think,
go with a lot.
I think 4 is a kind of
4.
a common number. I don't know what the production level is if you're trying to, you said, you knew somebody that wanted to have eggs.
Yeah, I know somebody that won't do these. She won't need but one. Though.
Well, if you're gonna give it to the planning board, they can do some more research.
That's great, yeah.
And one thing I will add, because I've seen this in other communities, not requiring a permit up front is really helpful, because then you don't have limited staff being put to that.
Right.
And also, believe it or not, that slaughter issue is important. We had citizens in a community that were doing home slaughter and create a real problem for the neighbors.
So we'll move forward with this to Planning and Zoning Board and then come back
Okay.
in November for a public hearing. Is that okay?
Council, everybody okay with that? Okay, we're good.
Okay.
I didn't have any.
December. I'm
motion
sorry, Mr.
pending
Mayor.
on that, did I?
The Planning Board will meet in November, so we'll bring it back in December, if that's okay.
Gail, I didn't have a motion pending on that, did I? Okay. All right. That'll be a help. Thank you. Next item of business is consideration of rotunda rental use with alcohol. As stated before and as passed by council, council has to make approval on requests to have alcohol at the depot during different functions. And I believe tonight, council, we have two applications. And the first application is from a Mr. Jeff Tippett in Raleigh, North Carolina. Would you like to expand on that?
Sure. Mr. Tippett would like to, has filled out all the appropriate paperwork to rent the rotunda in December. He would like to have alcohol, but it's not a deal breaker. He's going to move forward with it either way. He doesn't fall within the required period of time to have alcohol, but I told him that I would ask council's consideration on this. If this is something you all would like to approve, we can certainly let him know. But again, he says that it would be preferred, but he's going to move forward with the event either way.
What's the purpose of the rental? What's he want to do?
It's a birthday party.
Oh, okay.
No, this says on here wedding reception.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wedding reception, okay.
It is a wedding reception.
Morning wedding, looks like.
Yeah. Let me ask a question to council, because maybe I don't have it. But if we get into a situation where we're allowing
That's
alcohol down there, we don't really have any way to make sure this doesn't get out of hand, do we, if we approve it? Or not? I think that's the only thing scared me. I don't want any damage to the depot.
Well, they got insurance and stuff, I think.
They do.
They have to provide the insurance.
And just a point of clarification, I'm confusing the two. This is for October 19th.
Yeah.
That'll be next week.
That's right.
So, and it will be that reception.
I'm not concerned about the date. That doesn't bother me, but.
Well, the one issue is that it's inside the cutoff time, and we have turned somebody down before that was inside the cutoff. Is
We did?
my concern.
We did?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
That's probably something we need to revisit, because you're gonna have so many things planned that aren't gonna fall within that time period.
I agree.
45 days, if you're having a wedding
that-
shower or something, it's not gonna fall in, or a birthday party.
Right.
It's not gonna fall in that time period.
Well, your other issue is if for us to address it, it's got to have that time frame. If you want to turn it over, at one point there was talk of giving it to the mayor, and he didn't. And well, that was the same reason that he. I mean,
Right, well,
Refresh my memory, why?
Well, couldn't we just turn this over to the city manager, let him make
I
decision?
would think the city clerk could.
You there?
Thank you, sorry about that.
That's all right. We got you.
There was a discrepancy in the ordinance and policy about a year ago, and we brought it to council and we discussed it and had it changed. And Mr. Lindsay's right. We did talk about an extra provision for the mayor, I believe, to have control over these last minute requests. But that council or the mayor wasn't comfortable with moving forward with that, if I recall correctly.
he gave.
Well, let me just say this. For this one particular, right now we got two issues, a wedding and a Christmas party.
Right.
I make the motion, we allow them to have their wedding and Christmas party, including the serving of wine, beer, or whatever they got. Provided they got the necessary insurances and the things that would cover the city.
I'd like these.
Wait a minute, where are we at, Mr. Mayor?
We're talking about leasing the rotunda. We got two different leases.
I'd like to break these two
Okay, thank you.
apart and vote on them separately, because I'm against one because of the time, and I'm in favor of the other because they follow the policy.
Mr. Martin, would you like to revise your motion that we
No,
accept?
because they may not even known about the policy, and known about the time.
Yeah, they do. They agreed to it. They
Well-
knew that they put on here
But
that
not
they.
when they called and asked.
I'd say just let them, for this time, go ahead and approve both of them.
I think we need to.
I'll second that.
They don't have time to play around and wait now.
and
It's-
go
it's-
back and maybe revisit our policy.
Well, that's what I say. I mean, it's too late. Let's just let them have it.
Okay, I've got a motion
Got a
right
motion.
now to go ahead and approve both of these. And, I would ask for, who seconded the motion? Did I have a second?
I'll make a second, and if we have any issues, we just take them off the list, and they can never do it again. And if it gets out of hand or anything, then they got to go that night.
I got you covered
That's
on
good.
that then. Any further comment then?
Just,
If not, we'll
do
take
they-
it.
If they're having something down there that's on the city property and they're serving alcohol, why not have them have law enforcement there as security?
Well, y'all can provide security and ride around, look around. If they need the police, they can call. This type of thing, I don't think they'll need police.
Well, that's be readdressing what Ms.
yeah, that's,
Cassidy wants to do is readdress the whole issue.
Then we'd have to make them say they're gonna hire law enforcement and all that kind of stuff.
And we haven't gone that far.
They got telephone, they can call.
Anyway, the issue here in the motion and the second is to, allow both of these to have alcohol in the rotunda.
just one thing. They are required to apply and get all relevant, applicable ABC permits through the state, correct?
Right.
Yeah, right, they've signed the agreement on that. Okay, all in favor say aye, and opposed likewise. Okay, got one opposition.
So I can bring this back to council in November or December to discuss revising policy if was consensus.
I mean, if you're
To
going,
be perfectly honest with you, I think, and this is just my feeling, I think it should be, at least have to come before a council meeting.
Well, that was the reason for the 45 days, so we didn't have to have a special meeting.
No, it'll have to come before the council on a regular meeting. That's the way, that's all I'm suggesting.
I think a city manager can make a decision the same as council can, and that way you eliminate all this having to wait and come before council and all this kind of stuff.
what,
I agree. I mean, if people break the policy, then we just don't allow them to do it again. And just like, if you're renting some kind of venue and you're not obeying the policy, then you have to leave immediately. We just run them all out because we don't want to. They should be damaging our property. We shouldn't have any issues, or we shouldn't even have to call the law down there. Period.
All right, this is a discussion for a later date. We're not at that point right now.
could
And you
Mr.
can bring it back next month and we'll discuss it.
Could Mr. Morphus just give an answer if that's something that council has to vote on, or could the manager?
Sure. So the reason that council votes on it is because that's how you all decide to handle
That's
it.
right.
You thought there might be cases where it was a good idea, other cases where it's not. Manager could approve that, and that would be much quicker. My only recommendation with that is don't give the manager discretion. Give him a set of rules and say, if they meet these standards, they can have
Absolutely.
alcohol. 'Cause you don't want to put that on the manager to have to make these kind of judgment calls. The other thing, one of you all mentioned, I have seen policies that require you have off-duty security if the event is, a certain number of hours and there's alcohol served. So there might be some other things you could do if you're looking to delegate it to the manager.
And that's something that we could talk about.
Yeah, we'll bring,
I mean, that's not a
Yeah.
bad suggestion.
put that on the agenda for next
Got a
month, would be
$13
fine.
million
We'll
building down
discuss
there.
it.
That's right.
Okay, item number 10 is a discussion of a letter of support for the Samaritan Colony. And Mr. Harold Pearson, Director of Samaritan Colony, has requested a letter of support from the council for a 14-bed residential treatment center for women, and it will be built up there at the Samaritan Colony location, if I'm correct. Am I correct?
That's correct. He's going to Raleigh,
They
I
just
believe, to
wanna
lobby some legislatures.
Council support, and I said put it on the agenda for the council. What are your wishes, council?
Does that mean support with some kind of donation or just
No, just
say?
a letter of support.
Well, that's good. I think that's no
got a-
problem.
got a motion?
I'll make a motion to that.
Second.
Got a second? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
likewise. Thank you, John. Item number 11 is discussion of non-household debris removal. And I have had several discussions with the manager and with Mr. Stubbs. And I know that we bring this up about once a year or so. And what we're talking about here is the items like sofas and just general household trash that's cleared out. Because every time that we haul that trash off, we have to pay a separate fee for every trailer load that goes over there. Am I correct, Mr.?
Just for the building material.
Building materials, yeah, building materials. Now, they don't charge us for sofas and stuff, do they? But they do the building materials. And we're hauling a lot of building materials right now. And you were saying about how many truckloads or trailer?
We're averaging, 2 trailers with 4 men working 2 days a week, just picking up camera. This actually, over the last 6 months, it's got really.
And on top of that, we're picking up tremendous amount of other household items, aren't we, and hauling it, which is, this is taking these workers away from other stuff they're doing. But as y'all are aware, there are people clearing out houses, they're clearing out rental usings, so they just take everything, throw it out on the street for us to pick up.
Billy, could you elaborate on what county trash is? Some people might not.
We talked about kitchen tables, sofas, TVs, items like that is what we call county. We have building material, which is sheetrock, boards, roofing material. That's something completely different. And we don't pick the building material up. We'll leave the trailer at the home. They'll have to actually pay $150, and 80% of the time that doesn't cover the cost when we pick that trailer up and we take it to the county.
Yeah.
You have to pay by weight, right?
That's right.
It's definitely a bad deal for the city any way you look at it. If somebody leaves the house, moves and puts their stuff out, or the landlord throws the stuff out on the street, it costs us a lot of money to get rid of it, but if you leave it there, it's costing other issues with the property values and the way things look and things. So, I mean, there's no good, easy answer for it, and I've talked to Billy and Jonathan and past managers and past council. I've always been one that would rather pick it up than not, just because I think it needs to be picked up. But there is a delicate balance there, and I mean, I just don't want to see trash beside the streets.
I agree.
Wasn't there a policy 4, 5, 6 years ago about paying
There was.
X amount, and that got, I wasn't here, just too much problem?
And David, you're right. We're either going to pick it up sooner or later. I mean, it always has been that way.
With the ticket program, a lot of people would just haul stuff off themselves. We got down, we may get a trailer every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Right now, we're averaging at least 2 trailers a week picking up the stuff.
Wasn't that fee for like the white goods and not this?
It was for everything.
Yeah.
For everything?
No, they just get, yeah, they get tickets. I think one of the bad things about that was they were having to get the ticket down at the,
Shop.
down at the shop rather than being able to do it here at City Hall.
The problem was,
Mayor, can I ask just a quick question? All right, so Billy, let me ask you this: would we be better off to say that on a certain day of the week that we're going to pick up these items, and if you don't have them out there, they're going to sit there until a certain amount of time?
They already do. I mean, we just pick it up when we can.
well, the problem
I know when
is
we
if you don't
I
pick
know
it
when
up,
we can, but
and
other than
you
somebody
depend on
setting
them
the
to
couch
take it,
out on Monday, another person a dryer on Tuesday, or just giving reference here, can we limit it to a certain day of the week rather than going back to? Because here's the thing: is we can impose a charge on white goods. I think that's what we called it before. Because we're still going to get it. We always do. Because we're not going to let the city look like trash. So can we just impose a day rather than a fee? Because we already took a hit because of increasing the water bill, so we can ensure that we can keep everything running smoothly at the water department. I know it's a big hassle on the guys having to collect these goods, but we know we're going to get them.
They do it on a regular route. Jonathan, they do it on a regular route now. They have regular days that they go into different neighborhoods.
Well, I know that, and you know that, but do all the people know that?
should.
Yeah.
I know when the trash can be picked up.
I don't
every
think
Wednesday
our
morning.
problem's not the pickup. Our problem is the fact of what it's costing us to do it, and it just keeps getting larger and larger and larger. And we're eventually going to have to go up on trash fees. What's fixing to happen?
I understand that. So, but Mayor, you know yourself, we're going to get it. We're going to get it.
I know.
We're taking limb trailers now, and we're running to the county maybe 4 or 5 times a week, which is we try to pick it up on Thursdays and Fridays. And then you don't cover the whole city. You have to pick up the following week where you left off.
That's right.
You know, it's just, you got landlords evicting people, they put everything outside the street. I mean, you may load a trailer twice, and you got to take that to the county and dump it.
And that's the problem. It's not the average John Q. homeowner. It's the absentee landlords that's got these properties that are not coming and checking on them. And then when they evict people, people leave. They leave the stuff in there, and then the owner comes, and the owner just throws it out on the street. And there we are. So it's not like a pervasive problem with every house, but there's a lot of problems in certain areas. And it's the rental property, correct?
Some of it is. Some of it
About
is.
80% of it is. And you got those people that runs to yard sales.
What does Rockingham do about that stuff? Do they pick it up?
I don't know.
I'd like to find out.
I just hate to punish the actual citizens of Hamlet to, basically find the owners of rental property. And I get what everybody's saying, but it just sucks to sit there and impose another fee on someone that's actually living and owns a property in the city of Hamlet, because we're having problems with renters and rental properties and so on and so forth.
Well, and on top of that, Mr. Bowie, one of the things we're talking about is building material. And I mean, if you live in the city and you pay taxes, but if you tear down a storage building, should you put it out on the side of the street and the rest of the citizens got to pay to haul it off?
No, I agree with that. I agree with you completely on that. So we need to sit down and look at it. I don't think it's something we should say, hey, let's go with A and that's it.
This is probably something that needs to be on the mid-year.
I know, that's one of the things we need to look
absolutely.
at. That's all that's for. We're not here to make any decision on that tonight. Just to make aware that we do have a situation.
Mr. Blanton, if you could look at some other towns that.
See what they do, and especially on building materials, because I'm seeing a lot of.
I agree with you, Mayor. I mean, what we do, and Jesse had a good point, is we have a problem with one person, and we're speaking just when we're talking construction and things of that nature. But I think it's something we do need to sit down in the budget, session and try to figure out and see what we can do, so we're not punishing our citizens that live and pay tax dollars every day.
That's right. Okay. That's any further discussion on that? Not. We'll look into that and just see what's going on around in other places and work on it. But it was just to make sure everybody had it before them and realized that we were paying all this extra money to haul that building material off. Next item is approval of tax releases. Council, what's your wishes on that?
So move.
Got a motion to approve the tax releases?
Second.
Got a second? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Thank you. Next item of business, item number 13, is the proclamation for Veterans Day. Whereas the veterans in our community have served their country during peace and war and have kept our democracy safe, and whereas November the 11th is designated and set aside to honor all those who fought, died, and became disabled while defending this nation, and whereas it is fitting that a period of time be set aside to honor and show respect to these great men and women, now therefore I, Bill Bayless, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Hamlet, do hereby urge all citizens in our community to reflect on the democratic freedom and recognize the contribution that veterans have made possible for each of us by paying tribute on November the 11th of 2018. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the city of Hamlet. Thank you. Okay, next item of business, item number 14, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item that I have is that Mr. Cobb has advised that the total cost of that banner will be $720.56. As long as there is no objection, we will move forward with processing a check for that later this week for that revised total. The second item that I have is the demolition on McDonald Avenue concluded this week. Both of those, the house has been taken down and the lot has been cleared per council's decision last month. Thirdly, the Christmas parade is coming up on December 6th, and we are accepting applications for entrance into the Christmas parade. They can contact either Ms. Thornsberry at the museum or here at City Hall. We'll have information on that. On the same note as the mayor a few moments ago, the city will be closed on November 12th for Veterans Day. Also, we have the Ghost Tour coming up at the Depot October 19th and 20th. If anyone is interested in that event, by all means can contact City Hall or, again, our downtown coordinator, Ms. Thornsberry. And lastly, this afternoon I received a call from the county manager advising that they are going to be moving forward with spraying for mosquitoes. They hope to begin on Friday, and the entire process from coming in, prepping, getting everything in order is going to take about 4 days. They're hoping to start at dusk on Friday, going into the early morning of Saturday, depending again, of course, on the weather. That is all the formal items that I have for council and the public tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have any questions for the manager?
Evidently, the county didn't have a problem. The bee, I know there was a bee concern on the.
I know that they'd reached out and were hoping to speak to all the beekeepers in the county. I know there was some pushback, but as far as I know, that did not prevent them from moving forward.
We have enough problem with bees. I mean, not having enough bees.
Okay.
The only thing I have for the city manager, or really everybody, is I know about 3 weeks ago there were 4 confirmed cases of West Nile in Florence, and that's only just about an hour and 5 minutes from us. So I think the proactive approach for mosquitoes was probably in the best benefit. So we hopefully don't have any issues with that. I know it's kind of, a lot of people have concern with spraying and all that, but at the same time, you don't want issues with people coming down with West Nile.
Okay, next item of business is comments of council. I'll start with Mr. Martin tonight.
I don't have anything.
Okay. And we'll go over to Mr. Lindsay.
The first thing that came up a while back about amount of water that we process and the amount of water that we're billed, and we don't have meters on most of the city's property.
Right.
And I know Mr. Bayless in the past has, and I think Mr. Bowie, I think it's been brought up before. I think we need to start addressing, if we have a little downtime, let's go put a meter on the fire department or City Hall or the ballpark, and start getting this so we
need to have an accounting of it. That's
well, I mean, a third of our water is unaccounted for that we produce off these numbers.
Well, it's not accounted for, but basically it is because
Not charged.
it's just not recorded. You know, City Hall uses water, fire department, police department, they use water that's not on a meter. So that's where, I mean, that's where it would be.
We just
I don't
need to
see
know.
any worry about that.
Government's been, federal and state been after the county, just wanting to know where the water was going, and we can't account for all of it. It's just, we know we got leaks. We're gonna have them, but the biggest thing is we don't have any idea how much we're using in the city every month.
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit would be a meter, just so we know we don't have any leaks. Just that's the biggest benefit, in my opinion.
That's all. Yeah.
I think it's too expensive to install.
Billy, can we do that in-house, or would that have to be contracted out?
What about like fire hydrants and stuff? How would you do that? That's a good deal of water when they go out and test the hydrants and stuff like that.
Would you meter it off?
That's
Would be the
not-
only.
How much? I mean,
Fire hydrants, if they're training or, they have a structural fire, there's no way to meter.
There's not any way. The county doesn't even try to account for that.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, so if you got a significant amount that you're not going to be able to meter, would it be worthwhile to meter?
No, I can
the
tell
other
you that.
places?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
No, it wouldn't be
I don't know
worthwhile.
what the answer is.
I know what the answer is, and the answer is no. It'd be too expensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't see how you can meter everything that the city's using. I mean, it's used for every building uses it. Fire department uses it everywhere.
Mr. Lindsay, you have the floor.
I just I think we should try to meter our buildings, and if we got a leak at the ballpark, we don't know we got a leak, but, I think it ought to be addressed. Article in the Observer Online, HBDA and the, Opera House, they're evidently raising money for that. I didn't know that we'd started the Opera House.
As an independent group.
Well, I understand that, but before we had money from the Seaboard Festival, but in 2015, that they gave $2,000 to the Opera House, and the city didn't really, it was a accounting nightmare, that they just asked that if we could they could use it somewhere else. And we're talking $1 million+ project. Right. And I'm all for the Opera House, but if you raise 2,000 or 10,000, it's not going to do this project. I mean, and we've started public interest. If council wants to tackle the Opera House, but I think at some point you either say no, we can't do it. You don't, even though they are an independent group and can go raise money for whatever they want to do, but if we're not backing it, I don't see it's a good thing to be out saying that. I don't know where this came from. We have not discussed it that I know of in years, and it would be it'd be wonderful.
Do you not have any interest in backing it?
Well, we don't have the money to.
No, we're not talking about spending any money right now. They are the ones that want to
but
get some money together.
I'm sorry, but they can't raise what's needed to.
I actually was going to talk about that whenever I get mine, but I mean,
I'd like to come back.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead. I mean,
throw your thoughts into it. I mean, this is what it's
I don't
about.
want to take your time, but I mean, we can.
You just let me come back to the next.
Yeah, that's
go
fine.
ahead. Go right ahead. I'm not.
All right, I'll go to Mr.
I mean, if he wants
ahead,
to
Jesse.
expand on that.
Yeah, you got anything else you wanted?
Yeah, I
before
do,
that?
but
Okay.
while we're on the Opera House, go for it. I'm good.
I actually went to the HBDA meeting, and there were several folks there, and that group had expressed an interest in wanting to try to do something to move forward with the Opera House renovation. And I mean, I just attended as a guest, and I know, and I can't remember the year, it was sometime between 2005, I believe, and 2009, the city agreed to have a separate committee or something like that to start to try to look into some of the stuff with the Opera House. And at that time, we didn't budget any money for it, but we pledged. And you may remember, Mayor, but I'm thinking it was
I remember.
I'm thinking it was $100,000. That
$50,000
or $50,000. Okay, that we had pledged for it. And I mentioned that to the HBDA folks that was done years ago, and it would have to be readdressed if the council would be interested in it. That being said, I also suggested, just as a suggestion, that instead of doing it from the HBDA, that they form a board, that there be some communication with the city to form a board. And I think we had the framework for that board whenever we agreed for the $50,000. And here again, it wasn't a budgeted amount; it was a pledged amount. And you know, they've got some good ideas. And I mean, you're right; it's going to take a lot to raise that kind of money. But I heard outside of the box ideas that I've never heard from that group.
I did too.
Some of the ideas were contacting some of the industries around. Some of the ideas were, of course, going after grant money, which is going to be hard. And somebody even mentioned, you know, I mean, we've got several professional athletes from our town, and they even mentioned reaching out to some of those folks. I mean, it was just a lot of thoughtful process of how to move forward, and it really struck a tone in me that I would like to see something positive happen down there on that property. It's been something that's been looked at for years and years and years, and I know that would be one thing that would galvanize the community. And you're right, you're not. And I told them, you're not going to do it $100 a year. $2,000 there. It's going to have to be something that is going to try to produce some good big results. And that being said, I would like at some point, not now of course, but at some point, and my suggestion would be the mid-year budget retreat, to try to not even pledging money at that point, but try to get the committee set up, to get the foundation in line to where that group of people that put heart and soul in down there on Main Street and Hammond Avenue, to show them that we're going to work with them and help them. I mean, there was one person that came to that meeting that had spent all day cleaning out her business where the roof had collapsed and damaged everything she had and basically put her out of business. And she stopped that work and walked across the street and attended that meeting and put good ideas forward there. Can it be done? That's to be seen. But I know this community raised a bunch of money to move that train station. And I know there's some folks there that are really out for the good of Hamlet, as well as a lot of other folks. And I would just like to see this council maybe step forward in the next 6 months, 8 months, and back this group and do it the right way and just see what we can do, rather than saying you can't do it, you're not going to be able to do it. I would like to see something. Might not happen, might happen, I don't know, but I saw something from that group of business owners that night, and you were there, that I've never seen before. I saw a passion for wanting to do something. The building's secured. The building's got a roof on it. It's not leaking. And I mean, you look at the Sunrise Theater up in Moore County. I mean, you're not going to compete with a lot of stuff, but there's just a lot of positive things that could come from that. I really believe, and that's all I was going to say.
Well, I think I'm not against, I'm all in favor of the Opera House, but the city asked the Seaboard Festival to not give them the money, a small donation, basically what it amounted to, because it was an accounting nightmare from Miss Dickens, and they ended up putting the money to the library. It's a situation that, and this is what needs to be opened up for them to, it's our building, the city's building.
Absolutely.
This needs to be addressed because it has not been addressed, but we've got people out raising money. If they're addressing it, might bring this out into the open in the public and get this board behind it. But we've sort of jumped ahead. I don't know if pat on the back to go ahead, but the city needs to be the one to commit to doing the building before the public. You put the pressure on us, Ms. Bernice, but the city needs to commit to doing the building before we're out raising money and telling people we're going to do it. There's been fundraisers before on this building, but they sold the ceiling tiles, and you know they're still where is all the money gone to? And if you don't, the city, is this a county nightmare or not? For us to sit on $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000?
Be an issue with the auditor with keeping earmarked money in certain places in certain counties.
As it sets now. But if we go back and revisit that's all I'm
kind of after is,
and that's what needs to happen.
This board needs to address
I don't think this meeting's denied. I think the mid-year budget meeting, because there might not be anybody up here that's wanting to support it. I don't know. But then it's not an accounting nightmare, because then you have the pieces in place to make it to where it's going to go.
Do you need to speak, Ms. Bernice? I'm not.
Yes, I would like for you to pay some money, and you say that we cannot do this, we're going to show you. Remember when the depot?
Ma'am, I'm not.
Just a minute. When the depot had to be moved, and it's going to be torn down because we had no money. Okay, what happened? All of Hamlet got together, raised money, and moved the depot, and look what a beautiful building it is.
And if you'll ask. If you'll ask these board members, when I first came on, I asked them, I was in favor of it. I went out talking to some of the grant people. I asked them to give me 6 months, and I came back and said, I don't think we can get the money from local grants. I'm all in favor. I think it would be a wonderful thing for this city to have it. But we own the building, and the city needs to commit to it before y'all are out raising money for it.
But see, we were going to invite a council member to each of the meetings, and we were going to discuss it, which we have started. They have been there 3 times, and we were going to ask Mr. Martin and Miss Wendy and you. But the kicker is, we want $1,000 for each one of you. I don't hear you yays or nays.
You can get it from Linda and myself, I promise you.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that, and of course, it needs to be done the right way. He's exactly right. You don't, but we can't tell a private group of citizens that they can't collect money. I mean, as long as they don't turn it over to us.
But you need a backup plan to tell people that if we don't make this money's
But that's-
coming back to you, or it's going on another project of
Well, that's up to them. That doesn't have anything to do with us, right? Correct, right or wrong?
Well, if nobody minds, I'll just suggest that you be our backup.
Well, we have to do something with the building. So either A, we're going to support doing something with it, or B, we're going to tear it down, because we can't watch it just diminish and then tear up properties that's adjacent to it. So
That's right.
I mean,
Main Street's going down.
we have to make a decision.
Just one quick question. I'll ask the attorney. There's nothing that involves the city if that group wants to raise money for whatever reason they want to raise it, as long as we don't get it and have to account for it in our audits.
That's right. I mean, you can have a private group or a formal nonprofit raise funds for wherever they want. And honestly, until the city, as Mr. Lindsay has said, commits to it, it'd be better for that group to hold the funds so they don't end up with the auditing and accounting issues that the manager
Until
identified.
we revisit this.
I just don't want the community to be misled that the city is behind it at this point without us formally addressing it, committing to it. And that's the only thing. People have been jumping on board. I spent a lot of time looking at it, Ms. Bernice. I'd love to see it done. I don't think this city can afford it, but if you can make it happen, but again, till this board votes on it, we own the building, and there's nothing been decided. And that's all I'm after.
That's understood, that was understood before we started the discussion.
Well, from reading Facebook, it's not.
Oh, I don't read Facebook.
Believe everything you see on
Well,
Facebook.
yeah, don't.
I'll be glad
If you
to
believe everything on Facebook, Florence was going to go up to Virginia, but it came through North Carolina.
At the end of the day, the lawyer just said that does not concern this board. If they want to do it, I think it's something that they can do. We need to revisit in our mid-year budget retreat, and I will pledge you $1,000.
Thank you, and I want $1,000 from you, Councilman Lindsay, and Mayor Bayless, and Miss Wendy, and Mr. Martin.
I will consider it when the city votes to do it.
I'm glad you didn't say Mr. Bowie, because you ain't going to get $1,000 from me, but I'm damn sure help you out with what I can.
It's too early.
Next issue.
One other thing while we're talking about that, the depot got a major grant
They did.
to move that depot
Yeah.
over. It wasn't money just raised locally. It was a major
Their
grant
transportation
from the
funds did that.
DOT headed by Mr. G.R. Kinley, and that's why his picture's on the wall down there, because he's the one that got the money, a big major grant to move that depot.
But it had to be matched, Mr. Martin.
It didn't, I'm saying he got the major portion. We have to have a grant, in my opinion. We gotta get somebody to help us. Locally, 1,000 here, 1,000 there, we're talking more than $1 million. That ain't gonna help nothing.
Okay. Senator McInnes is also going to help us.
All right.
So is the North Carolina Oakley.
Well, let's see what they do.
And so we're starting.
Well, that's great. I just hope they do it.
Well, we're going to get the money. Don't worry, we're going to get the money.
I hope so. Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you for what you're doing.
It's just, okay. In your update on the 21st, you said the city of Rockingham was going to allow the Seaboard Festival, which they have the stage in the past. But you said we were, yeah.
Are you asking?
No, I'm sorry. I was talking, they let us use it in the past, and it's great. It's a wonderful stage. but you said our insurance policy was gonna cover it. I've got emails, is this changed? Because we've tried this before in the past, and I've got emails from you and Marcus that this was not allowed by our insurance company.
It wasn't a matter of the stage when your wife and I discussed it. It was a matter of the festival itself being on our insurance company. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't have the emails in front of me, but that's the only recollection. that I have
It's
of that.
talking about the stage, because the stage was liability insurance.
It was my understanding
It
the city of
said-
Rockingham wasn't going to allow us to use their stage last year.
We had to pay a rider on our insurance policy. I'm just here to make sure that what's happening is not a drop, that the liability from municipal we're covered.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the past, it says that you have to be 100% sponsor. This is an email from you, and you dug up from Mr. Marcus Abernathy. It says that the city completely sponsors the insurance will cover from a nominal fee in our policy, and that's why they have to get their own insurance policy. Again, I think it's great that Rockingham's given us the stage. I think it's great. I just trying to protect the Seaboard Festival as much as anything, because they went 4 years without being a nonprofit, and if something would have happened, and this is not on y'all, the insurance they'd have laughed at you, and the city let this go. They knew it. So just investigate, then make sure that they're covered, and there's just not somebody falls off the stage, and it's a small fee that you'd have to pay, but in the past it wasn't allowed. So I'll give you these emails out the door. I just want you to check on it. Again, I don't want them to have an issue. They're paying for a policy anyway, and if they only have to pay a little rider to go with it, then it's in their best interest to pay it, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Maskey? Okay. Mr. Bowie?
I don't have anything. I just, biggest apology is sorry I couldn't be there. I had some last minute arrangements. I had to travel for work. Definitely glad Chuck came, shared information about the Seaboard. Glad that we're focusing on the park down at South Hamlet, just things that we needed to do. Definitely thankful that we're able to get the stage this year and use it. In years past, we haven't been able to use it. I think it's been leased out or rented out or whatever the case may be, but just glad we're getting to use that. We've had a stage years past, either at the top end, but this year we'll get to have it at both ends, so that's good stuff. And I appreciate Mr. Barnes being able to come and speak to council about some issues. That's the thing that we need to focus on is citizens coming to us and telling us, what's going on in the city. We need to continue that, drive that effort to have people come and speak to us. Just all good things. We will not meet before Halloween, so I want to make sure that just citizens know, let's be cognizant of kids out in the street trick-or-treating. Be sure we're out, police is enforcing speed limits and watching our areas really good to ensure the safety of the kids and the parents that's out there on the road with them during trick-or-treating. And that's all I have, Mayor. I appreciate everybody. And again, just sorry I couldn't be there tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bowie. Mayor's comments tonight. Of course, the fair's in town this week. That means it's going to rain. But
Can I get a turn?
you can in just a minute. I thought you did.
Well,
I piggybacked off him with one thing.
Okay, all right. Hold on a minute. Then go ahead, Mr.
Well, you can go ahead if you want.
No, I can get to mine in just a minute.
Okay. All right. I just wanted
I thought
to
you
turn.
had everything.
Oh, yeah. You can speak last. HPDA and the Opera House, I think that's a good project. I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. at some point in the near future, the city and your organization needs to get together and see if that's something that is viable that everybody would agree to get on board with. Also, I would like for the city, preferably the manager, if everybody would agree to it, just in terms of information gathering, to speak with the folks at First Health to see if they've got any idea of any plans or anything in any stages at all that they're thinking about or possibly could be doing with the old hospital. I think that is something that we need to at least be in contact with them about. Every time I ride by there, I see it, and I hate it. That being said, whether it was bought for whatever reason, the fact is that was one of our biggest tax customers. That was one of our biggest water and sewer customers. And a nonprofit bought it, and that took away the taxes, and it's closed down, so there goes the water and sewer. And I just want to know if there's any plans, and if there's anything that they may be thinking about to do with that building. I mean, I don't know if anybody else cares about sending them a letter or talking to them or whatever, but I would really like to see if there's any interest or if they're trying to do something with it, just so we can be informed. Because I've had a lot of folks ask me about that. That's a big deal for Hamlet. I mean, that's a lot of money we lost.
RCC is using it now as part of their nursing program.
I know RCC is using a
nursing program.
Part of it in the ER part. But I'm just saying, at some point, what's the plan? Is there a plan? May not be. We can't force them. I mean, I would like to know if there is a plan. You may have a problem if he does that.
So what?
Does anybody have a problem if he does that?
No.
Okay.
It's good to reach out and touch them occasionally about it.
Just see what's going on. I mean, just keep us informed. And then also, the past hurricane that we had, Hurricane Florence, I personally just want to thank everyone in the city for all the hard work that was done. The police department, fire department, public works, the water department, the sewer department. I mean, these folks worked. I mean, Robbie could tell you, I mean, they worked dozens of hours. Billy's crew did a great job. They were out. They worked together efficiently and effectively as a team, all areas of the city. We had the water department running on a generator. We had the sewer plant running on a generator. We had people responding in this storm in dangerous situations where most folks stopped their services, the power companies, cable companies, phone companies, and all. Our folks were still out there saving people, rescuing people, protecting lives. And I actually came down to the fire department several times, and I watched the interactions of all of the employees. And I've not been as proud of anything dealing with this city in years. I mean, it really put it in perspective when you see all these folks out doing a job for us while we're home safe and dry and this and that and the other. Hats off to everyone that participated. A fabulous job by everyone, and I can't say that enough. And that being said, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I missed you.
Mayor.
I thought you.
Oh no, that's fine.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Bowie.
Sorry, one more thing. Jesse, thank you for bringing that point up. With the fire department and police department, I won't say how many hours, but that weekend I was out with the fire department and participating in tree and limb cleanup, trees falling every time they fell. The fire department was on it. I was out there with them. And for them to be out in the weather that they were in, the rain, and even the city manager, he was out the entire weekend with the fire rescue, police, responding to every tree that fell across the road on a power line. Just a tremendous effort from both departments and public works. Billy was out and just we had a call from Laurinburg, and Laurinburg needed assistance. These guys didn't hesitate. It was an immediate response. Hey, need the guys to come to the station, get everything packed up, go to Laurinburg. We assisted even with other towns, and for us to be able to do that was just phenomenal to watch, and a sincere concern. I had members of the fire department, rescue department reaching out, texting me, telling me, hey, what was going on in those locations. And just to know what was going on outside of our neighborhood, we were very fortunate that we were not impacted the way that they were. We had some trees down, we had some power outages, yes. But these folks, they had water in their homes and were waiting on a boat to come to their front door so that they could step down from their second level story and get into a boat and be rescued to dry land. That just, it just, you would not even be able to even fathom or imagine unless you saw the pictures and the videos. So, to everyone there, just can't thank them enough for what they did and the effort shown. And it represented the city of Hamlet and how we care about not only the city of Hamlet, but we took care of our neighbors as well. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway, the fair's in town this week, and it looks like we're going to get a couple of days of rain. We got a lot of animals in the barn this year. We got a lot of art exhibits down there. The rides are set up on as high ground as we can get them on. So we're looking for a fairly good week down there at the fair, and hope everyone will come out and enjoy it. Again, I have to go back to the same thing on the employees, police department, fire department, utilities. Everybody just worked their fannies off over this thing. They were out all during this storm. The one thing that we absolutely could not do is we couldn't touch any tree that was hanging on a power line. That just was not going to happen. Somebody had been dead. But this happened all over the county. I had to say that over in East Rockingham, the fire department over there, we ran over 40 calls in 24 hours. And most of it was trees down. And there was not a whole lot of houses damaged, but there was a lot of roads that we had to cut trees out of the road. Rode around Hamlet a lot and saw the things that were done. I have to say that we have got a hands-on manager. We got a manager that doesn't matter what it is. If there's a need, he's going to be out there. He goes out. He gets complaint calls all along. He's gone out and checked these, but I don't know how many hours of sleep he got over that 3 or 4 days, but it couldn't have been much. But we appreciate what he does for us. The 27th of October is the Seaboard Festival. Look forward to seeing everybody out on the street and enjoying themselves, and hopefully it'll be a great day. A really, really sad note that we have, of course, is that we lost our dear friend and employee, Brother Jacobs. I think everybody knew Brother, and it was just a real shock. It was unexpected. He had a heart attack, passed on. So we want to keep his family in our thoughts over the next few days. And other than that, I believe that's all I had. Council, at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session per General Statute 143, 318.11A, 5 and 6 for contract discussion and a personnel matter.
Make a motion to go into closed session with a brief moment of silence for a loss of employees.
Okay, we got a motion from Mr. Bowie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed likewise. All right, motion to...
Mr. Bowie requested a moment of, okay.
Yes, a moment of silence, please.